The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then...
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Vince McMahon's best kept secret.
I am the Antichrist of professional wrestling!
David Arquette won the world title!
I've got a wife, 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit.
How can this show be so awful, Mr. McMahon? I didn't think it was.
Viagra on a pole match.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass!
Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. McMahon, the family, the Rock, they screwed us all.
Now you're the editor, right?
Mankind did it! Jumpy, beat me! Goldberg steered Russo out of the cage.
I'm from New York.
I'll get downright nasty.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
I literally have a guest that's one of a kind. You know, listen, I call him wrestling royalty, but listen, I'll be honest with you. Like, maybe I'm giving the guy too much credit. I like to call him what Lou Albano said, you know, and everybody knows how much I love the captain. This man is more or less a legend in his own mind. He's been around before the age of the dinosaur. He's still kicking. Bro, the guy is 70 years old, and he just wrote a freaking book. When I'm 70 years old, I'm not going to want to get out of bed. Let me make that perfectly clear. He just authored a book. We're going to talk about that. But it is an honor and a privilege because, listen, all kidding aside, he is royalty. When you say professional wrestling, you have to put that, coincide that hand in hand with Mr. Bill Apter. Mr. Apter, how you doing today?
Well, it's great to be here. And of course, you know, I have to say, you know something, brother, the captain's a legend in his own mind. I got to get my Lou Albano impression there. It is a thrill to be here, by the
Listen,
way.
I have to have guidelines with you because you tend to get out of hand. So I got to keep you under control. Okay, so let me, and I don't set guidelines for any other guests, and they've all been on this show, but for you, I gotta set the guidelines because I know how you are. You're like a one-man show. You're gonna try to hijack the show. You already went into the Albano impersonation. In 30 seconds, it's gonna be Jerry Lewis and then everybody else. Listen, with no impressions on this show until I call for them. Do you understand that?
I'll be good.
Okay. The PWI 500. You are part of that.
I was part of it, but I was not. I never wrote the PWI 500. I never rated most of the guys, and I never came up with the concept. So,
Bill, listen, you got to be like me, and you got to take credit for everything.
No, I don't take credit for that at all. There are several things back from the magazine days. The most heat and most aggravation that I get is because of 2 topics. Number one, the PWI 500, which again, I wasn't mine. And the other thing was, hey, Bill, it was incredible that how you used to write Eddie Elner and Dan Shockett. When those 2 guys, Dan Shockett died very young, many, many years ago of cancer. And if you want to find Eddie Elner, go to Google, type his name in. He's got a thing in California, a yoga studio, and you can find him there. I never wrote anyone but moi.
All right, listen, I think you dodged me, bro, because
no, not at all. Not at all.
I hold you responsible for this. I hold you responsible for this anyway, because what people say when they talk about the PWR 500, they talk about Bill Apter. So I hold you responsible. Yeah, listen, you're not going to dodge the bullet, bro.
I'm not. I'm telling you the truth.
How was a former WCW world champion not even crack the PWI 500, let alone the top 5?
Who are we talking about?
We're talking about me.
Oh, you know what? I understand that. Yeah. And now, how many years ago was that?
15, 16.
So if you look at the history of Bill Apter on Wikipedia, it was about 15 or 16 years ago that I left for WOW magazine.
You're full of fun. Yeah, come on, look at him. See, you're a worker, bro. You're working. You're no different. You're no different than Kevin Nash.
Wait a minute, but I'm staying home, but I am going to work. So the deal here is that even if I was part of that in the top 5, there would have been an asterisk regarding putting you in because it was mainly, we used to sit and rank the top 500 guys. There were about 8 of us there, and we always brought in 1 or 2 outsiders, nothing to do with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, of course. We brought in a couple of outsiders just to kind of temper what we were doing and just to get an outsider's opinion. And most time those outsiders wanted a guy from Japan as number 1. Well, our magazines weren't on sale in Japan, so we put them generally in the top 5 or top 10. But going back to your original question, is that Vince Russo, even though a former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, would not have been in that top 10. I don't know, you might have been number 500, which is a great placement because everyone remembers number 1 and number 500.
Listen, Mr. Bill Apter.
Yes, Mr.
Let's get serious, me and you, okay? Yes, you're a 70-year-old man, Mr. Apter. How many years in the wrestling business now?
50.
50 years in the wrestling business, Mr. Apter. Mr. Apter, when is it time for you to visit, Shady Oaks retirement home? But what is that, Boca Raton? When is it time for you to pack it up? Listen, take off the boots. You showed me before your Lego championship belt. Take all that. When is it time to go to the retirement home in Florida? You're a 70-year-old man. You just wrote a bestseller book. When I'm 70 years old, Mr. Apter, I'm not getting out of bed. What are you doing, man?
Well, first thing I would do if I retired, which I'm not, is go and wake you up so you and I can do something. That's number one. Number 2, why retire? Unless I can mentally or physically not do this. I juggle 2 careers every day, one of them being the pro wrestling business, and the other one I work for a nonprofit called Ahead out of Pennsylvania, where we assist people with disabilities to find jobs. And I wake up every morning just anxious to get out and do this. Back when I was a little kid, 7 years old, was, hey, honey, where's the graveyard? But now, I mean, like, it's a cliche, but it's just a damn number. It really is. I mean, I'm still doing things that I did 30, 35 years ago.
Mr. Apter, I met your lovely wife and your daughter not too long ago. What are their names again, your lovely wife and your daughter?
My wife is Andrea and my daughter is Haley.
How long have you been married to the lovely Andrea?
Wow, now we're getting personal. This would be 34 years. It's my second time around for marriage. I liked it so much I decided.
Yeah, because the first wife, you got on the nerves probably after 6 months, and she probably dumped you like a hot potato. Which I want to ask you, Mr. Apter, how has the lovely Andrea, right?
Yes.
How has she put up with you you must drive your wife like bonkers, bro.
Well, luckily, right now she's either on her way to work or out at the moment while we're doing this. So I can say she and I are total opposites. Every one of my jokes is like, again, and she's not into the wrestling business at all. She's
mine either. Bill, I've been married 33 years, like you. Bill, my wife, now, Bill, I've purposely done that. I kept my wife as far away from the business as possible. Did you purposely do that too, or your wife did that on her own?
No, she did that on her own. I dragged her. I took her. I still, once in a while, she comes to the conventions with me when I'm doing a book event or something like that. But no, she's not into this. She's more, like last night I had deadlines for OneWrestling.com, and part of our outside screen door broke, and it was like, you got to go to Home Depot. I have work to do. I know, but this is house stuff. You got to go to Home Depot. So no, it's not. It's a different mentality than people like us who have been doing that. This isn't a job. It's part of who I am. I did this before I met her. I did this before I had my kids, 2 kids, by the way. Brandon is my son. And I did this before anything else.
Now, Bill, I met the lovely Haley. How old are Haley and Brandon?
Well, my daughter now, as she got married a while ago, I can't give you her age. She's in her early 30s.
What about Brandon?
Brandon's going to be 29 now. He was just 29.
Now, Bill, let me ask you this question because I have 3 kids, Bill, 20, 26, and 29. Bill, we got a lot in common. Now, Bill, all 3 of my kids, nothing to do with wrestling. They're not wrestling fans. Same with your kids?
No, not yes and no. Brandon was the biggest wrestling fan in the whole world during the prime days of WCW. He was a big Goldberg and Sting fan. And I used to take him backstage, and the guys treated him really. You may have even met him when he was a little kid.
I probably did.
Yeah. So today at 29, once in a while he'll get into it. He still keeps in touch with Goldberg and with Sting. But
all right, Bill, listen, you don't need to be name dropping.
No,
all right? You're a 70-year-old man. Honestly, bro, stop.
I'm not name dropping. I'm telling you where he's tuned in. WWE at this point, unless I say turn it on, one of your old WCW guys is in there. He's really not interested. Brandon's in the he's a total sports baseball football guy. He works for the team in Port Charlotte, Florida, as the marketing and promotion.
What team in Port?
The Stone Crabs.
What are they? A minor league team?
Minor league team, and he just he had left Gwinnett, which is the minor league team for the Atlanta Braves.
So he worked with. He must have worked with Shivani then, no?
Well, he did for a while. Yes, yeah. Actually, he called the day he was being interviewed. He called me. He says, "You'll never believe who I'm standing here with." I said, "Who's?" Tony Schiavone.
The great Tony Schiavone.
It was weird though that my 2 worlds, because my son was such a fan back in the Schiavone days, that here he was standing here working at the same team.
Now, Bill, what team does he work for?
Well, right now it's the Charlotte Stone Crabs.
And they're an affiliate of who?
The Tampa. Yeah, I'm not.
Hey, Bill, I've never asked you this question before. Bill, I'm a huge baseball guy. Like, bro, I love baseball a million times more than I love wrestling. Baseball's my life. Are you a big baseball guy, Bill?
No, not at all. My father was a Sandlot and minor league umpire, and he loved that. He worked in the post office during the day, and then he'd get in the car in Queens and go to the Bronx Umpires Alliance and umped games. He was the ultimate Yankee fan. My son, because most of his life has been here in Pennsylvania, is the ultimate Phillies fan. He's a huge baseball fan, and actually does a column for Philadelphia.com.
Bill, can I conduct this interview, please? You're all over the place already.
Okay, go ahead.
Now listen, I don't want to go with Bill. How'd you get into business? How'd you get? I don't care about any of that. I got Bill Apter on my show. I want one thing from Bill Apter and Bill Apter only. You know what that is, Mr. Apter?
What?
I want stories. I want stories because you know me. Listen, and listen, before this interview is over, I'm going to get you to bury today's product because I know you're an old schooler just like me, and this flip-flop and flying with no psychology is for the birds, and I'm going to get you to admit that even though you don't bury anything. I want to talk about an era where professional wrestling was professional wrestling, and Mr. Apter, who is I said you're a treasure, even though I'd like you to be a buried treasure at times because you get on my nerves sometimes, Mr. Apter. But you have such a rich storybook of stories, and I know, bro, your new book. Let me plug your new book here. I know is Wrestling Fixed. I didn't know it was broken. I know all the stories are in that book. All the stories are in that book. But you got to give me some stories today. So, Bill, what I'd like to do is I'd like to throw some names at you because I'm such a mark for the old school. I want to throw names at you, and I want you to boom hit me with a story. Let's see
if I got one. You've got it.
Are you game for this, Mr. Apter?
Let's do it. I'm game for anything,
Mr. Apter. Listen. I got to bury my head in my hands here for a second. All right. It's a lost art, Mr. Apter. To me, the greatest trio in the history of the world. Forget about sports entertainment. Forget about professional wrestling. The greatest 3 trio in the history of the world. Maybe some people would say it was Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman. No. The greatest 3 human beings that you put together in the history of the world. I'm talking about the Captain Lou Albano. I'm talking about the Grand Wizard of Wrestling. And I'm talking about classy Freddie Blassie. Obviously, the manager is a dead art form in professional wrestling. These were three of the most charismatic human beings I've ever seen in my life. When I throw those three names at you, give me something, Mr. Apter.
Well, let's start off with Fred Blassie. Fred Blassie was at the Fashion Plate of Wrestling. Fred Blassie was an original, and the thing that we had to do in the magazines with him was very unusual, because we had to really watch what we did, because there was no internet, no cable TV back then, until Los Angeles started broadcasting on Channel 41 in New York. You remember that?
No, that's probably even before my time, maybe. Okay. I don't remember that.
Well, Fred Blassie at that time was the ultimate good guy out there. The fans there absolutely adored him. But then he came to New York to feud with Pedro Morales. And I had issues with Fred because we didn't know how to play, what's this guy doing? In Los Angeles, he's a good guy. And here he's a bad guy. And then he became a manager here. So he used to come over to me, and he was really upset about this. And he was such a sweet guy. We eventually made the mixture of that with he and the Grand Wizard, that like the Grand Wizard, who became Abdullah Farouk, was that when they were flying in the air, a metamorphosis took place. They would become another character, right? So I didn't know what airline they were in. But
so you're even telling me, Mister. Here's what you're saying. Let me translate this for the people listening. You're telling me basically you got on Freddie Blassie's nerves.
Yeah. Now let me tell you the main part where I got on his nerves, where the magazines got on his nerves, but I was the face of the magazines. And by the way, they're not the Apter mags. Dave Meltzer came up with that, and I used to yell at him not to do that. Anyway, so getting back to
and let me just point out to my audience that Mr. Apter just said that in order to put himself over. He really wants you to know they are the Apter Max. Go on with the story, please.
I know
you're all over the place. See, you're all over the place. Go.
So Fred Blassie. If we took a picture of him, or I interviewed him on my old cassette recorder, if I interviewed one of his wrestlers or took a picture of one of his wrestlers without him there, I would get immense heat from him. He'd come over, he was pretty soft-spoken when he talked to me. He would just talk like this. But when he came over to me and wanted to know why there was a picture in the magazine without him in there, he was that character of Fred Blassie. He's pretty scary. He really was. The Grand Wizard.
Yeah, but you look. It was scary at the time, but you look back now, and how lucky were you? Right?
Oh, please. I mean, it just was. By the way, wasn't John Arizzi one of your best friends way back when, the president of his fan club?
Who's conducting this interview?
No, I'm asking you a question. It's a discussion, isn't it?
I don't want to talk about John Arizzi. I want to talk about the captain, the Grand Wizard. Will you stay focused? Is this an age thing that you can't stay focused with me?
No. I'm an interviewer, so I do this.
Right, go ahead. Captain Lou. Give me Captain Lou.
All right,
don't do the impression. You'll kill it for everybody.
I won't do the impression.
All right, thank God.
Captain Lou. Well, a lot of people wouldn't say that, but Captain Lou was great. I remember one time when he came to the magazines, and he was actually sober for a change. And we were going to do a photo set, and
wait, Bill, let me stop you right there. Look, because I got to ask you this, bro, because everybody knows. Well, not everybody. Us old guys, Bill, know. Mr. Albano, the great captain, liked to drink.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you this, bro. You just say, there was an incident where he was sober. Bro, what was he like sober?
He was a little more reserved. He was a little more quiet. I had never really seen him sober very often. Unfortunately, I have to say this. It's like the guy who goes home and the wife is asked, how did you know your husband was an alcoholic? And she said he came home sober one night. So getting back to Captain Lou here.
Do we have to get the corny jokes in there? Can we just tell the Captain Lou story? I got to beg you, bro.
I'm trying to. So
go ahead.
So now we took him to to a restaurant. The office was in Freeport, Long Island, known for seafood. And we took him to a restaurant, and the captain practically drank himself under the table. And he was one of the best interviews and best photo sessions we ever did. The other one was the Win a Dream Date with the Valiant Brothers, where I went out with the Valiant Brothers and Captain Lou Albano with a young lady who was picked to be the Dream Date. And Captain, after a drink or two, was all over this.
Oh, I wish I would have won that contest.
Well, you weren't the right gender.
Yeah. Now, what about the Grand Wizard?
Listen, one of the first people who endorsed me to be in the business was the Grand Wizard. He knew Stanley Weston, my mentor, and I remember Mr. Weston called him one day, and he called him Ernie, and I was like, oh my God, that's his real name. And once I met Ernie, and he always called me Stan Weston's boy, even though I wasn't his son. He said he always felt like I was the son Stanley Weston never had. But I did so many incredible interviews and stories with him. The best one, though, that became the most well-known was when he had Stan the Man Stasiak hit me with the heart punch. And that was all over the magazines. Ernie would do anything. He was way before his time. If he was around today in the days of sports entertainment, he would just relish what the business became. Although he was, a traditionalist, he would have loved what the business became today. He would have loved to be part of it. He was a warm, caring man and one of the greatest characters I've ever met in my life.
Bill, let me ask you a question, bro. Let's get a little deeper inside. I know these, because, bro, I'm a mark for these guys. I should write a book about these three guys. I know they always used to travel together. They were together a lot. Mm-hmm. Bro, was there ever any heat like between these three guys? Because let's face it, Bill, this is still the wrestling business. They're still independent contractors. They're still vying for their spots. Even though there was a friendship, there had to be some competition between these three guys. No, Bill?
If there was, I never saw it.
Really? Wow.
That when I traveled sometimes from one town to another town with the three of them, and I had the pleasure of doing this, it was all about having fun, drinking, and getting to the next place. So, again, that may have existed, but I never saw it.
All right. What can you tell me? What do you remember, Bill, about the big cat Ernie Ladd?
Oh, my God. The first time I met him was in Buffalo, New York, at one of Pedro Martinez's shows. And he came over to me and he says, what's the circulation of the magazines? He was very inquisitive, wanted to know how much money the magazines made, what the circulation was, where they are. So this is pre his religious days. He decided he was going to take me out to a classy dinner. So we went to Denny's in Buffalo. And the waitress was gorgeous. And we were sitting there eating, and I said, that waitress is drop dead gorgeous. I would love to meet her. So he calls her over, and he says, and I have to do his voice, I'm sorry. And he said, young lady, our friend Bill here would like to know if you would sit on his face. That was pre-religious.
Mike, imagine, God, can you imagine if somebody would say something like that to a waitress today? Can you imagine, Bill?
Well, if they didn't accommodate, you would be all over the internet. But and then he used to, whenever he went to West Palm Beach, my parents lived in a retirement place in West Palm Beach. Anytime he'd go, my dad would see him on Monday nights in West Palm Beach, and my dad always took a picture of him with him, and my dad reached his navel, and he'd call me from the arena on an arena payphone there for Ernie always to call and say hello to me. And he always asked whenever I saw him how my parents are. He was quiet, he was smiley, and he was a really nice guy. But what I didn't understand was why he wanted to know everything about the circulation of the magazine.
Interesting. Yeah. Bill, I'll never forget this because one time I shook his hand. This is the God honest truth, bro. I shook Ernie Ladd's hand, and his hand wrapped around my wrist. The biggest pause I've ever seen on a man.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, you ready for this one, bro?
Let's go.
The great superstar Billy Graham.
Oh, when you talk about superstar Billy Graham was he was Mr. Self-Promotion. He was the greatest self-promoter in
off camera. Now you're talking.
Oh yeah, off and on camera. He was
Okay.
always on. Even when he was off camera, he was always, hey, but he would, my favorite story about him was anytime he'd get in the ring, there'd be me, George Napolitano, and Frank Amato, and Paul Heyman shooting pictures on the ring, and he'd get a guy down, lock him in a lock, and he'd go, put this on the cover, Bill Apter. Put this on the cover. And until he saw all the flashes go off, he wouldn't move. And he used to tick off people like Ivan Putski. You say, how come you got that guy on the cover with you? Because Putski was always on the other end. One of the best days I ever spent with him was I took him into New York City, and it was before one of the Madison Square Garden shows, and we walked around the city, and we found fans were all over him. He was main eventing at the Garden, and we found this garbage can right outside the Hard Rock Cafe, which became the WWE Cafe, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I stood him up on the garbage can, and he posed like this, and hundreds of people were watching me shooting pictures, and the police had to clear us out. And this is in the book. At that time when he came down, this one guy wouldn't move from the police or anything. It was Herb Abrams. You remember Herb Abrams?
Of course, yeah.
I'm going to make you a star. But Billy Graham was so cordial to him and everybody else. But we had such a great day in New York. He was never off.
Well, listen, Bill's book, I'm not far from done. I just want to get these plugs in here for you, Mr. Apter. Bill's book is Wrestling Fixed. I didn't know it was broken. It's available. We're going to tell everybody how to get that, and all these stories are in this book. Obviously, Mr. Apter, I know one of your favorites that I got to ask you about, Mr. Bruno Sammartino.
Oh, of course. I mean, what a sweetheart of a guy. Incidents with him, though, were plentiful, both at home, at my home, and in the magazine office. Back before I started, Stanley Weston used to get a great idea about an angle, give it to a writer, and say, do this story. And they never called any of the wrestlers to find out what was going on. Well, they did a This Is Your Life, Bruno Sammartino. And I read it, and I said, boy, this is a great story. Well, the first time I ever met Bruno asked me, can I do the Bruno voice? I'm not going to
Go ahead.
Bruno said to me, he says, you worked for this Stanley West. Did you see what he wrote? This story about my sister when she was 6 years old, killing a Nazi, and that he says his life story is true, and it's very important. And Stanley Weston glorified it, where she had his little sister killing a Nazi, and all these things going on that weren't Bruno's life. And Bruno said to me that if you're working for this guy, that even his friends were reading these magazines, and he was embarrassed to show them any of this stuff. So I told him, I said, this may cost me my job, but I'm going to go back to Mr. Weston, and I'd like you to go on my audio tape here and tell him what you really feel. And I still have that audio tape, by the way. And Mr. Weston said, I can't believe it. That was an incredible story. So I did what became the very first Shoot magazine shoot interview, where I did 2-hour shoot interview with Bruno. And from that day on, I mean, he used to call me if he was misquoted in a story or one of the writers made up a quote. He'd call me at 10 o'clock at night at home, and my ex-wife would say, it's Bruno Sammartino again. And, who's this guy, this Dave Rosenbaum, who wrote this story? He was very upset, because he always told me that he always appreciated the reporter, like any other sports, who would call him, and there was always a way to find him through somewhere to call him and get a quote from him. He wanted to be really quoted. And through the years after that, I always called him and we quoted him because he appreciated that.
All right. Here's a good one, Bill. You ready for this?
By the way,
Bill, I'm not boring you because I'm walking out over your stories.
No, I'm enjoying this.
Okay. All right. What were you going to say? Go ahead. By the way, what?
But by the way, to this day, I still talk to Bruno, and if I ever need an interview with him about anything that's going on in the business, he's always glad to be there. He became a very And I know I'm sounding like everybody's such a great, nice guy and all that, but this is how it was different for the guy from the magazine. A lot of them had an ulterior motive where they couldn't treat me rotten because.
Well, Bill, let me ask you this, and be honest with me now. Be honest with me, because I know. Listen, bro, I know you're Mr. Positive and all. I get it. I know that, but you got to be. This is podcast one, bro. We got hundreds of thousands of people listening to us, bro. Listen, back then we're talking about a period of time, where kayfabe ruled the earth. And what you were doing pretty much was, you were getting in that world of kayfabe, and I would have to imagine that at times it got difficult, and at times, maybe you weren't welcomed with open arms, bro. Were there any instances where you were threatened by anybody because kayfabe was so sacred back then?
I was at David Von Erich's funeral. I was very close with the Von Erich family. And prior to about 2 months before David died, Dan Shockett, who was our heel columnist, wrote a column likening Kevin, David, and Kerry to the Three Stooges. Okay? Fritz had not seen this article, and it's the worst timing in the world.
Wow.
The article came out a few days after David died. So Gary Hart called me and he said, "My man, you're out. Fritz would like to kill you if he could. You're out of the business as far as he's concerned. You're like dead and buried, my man." And I said, wait. Number one, the timing was horrible. This was done 3 months ago. And number two, Dan is our heel columnist. He says, nothing. So he said, "Don't come down to Texas Stadium, bro, because you're going to regret this." So I was really scared because Fritz Von Erich.
Oh yeah, I'd be scared too, bro.
Yeah. So I tried to call him over and over again. He refused to take my calls, and again, I was like a member of their family. So I decided I was going to go, and I kept calling the house. And one day I spoke to his wife, Doris, who we lost recently, and I explained that to her, and she said, "Well, he doesn't want to talk to me." So at Texas Stadium, I'm backstage there, getting my cameras ready.
Wow, so you went anywhere, huh, Bill? You went anyway?
Scared, with a word you'll never hear me use. Scared.
Wow.
Shitless.
Wow.
So I'm backstage.
I don't know if I would have went.
No, I had to go. It was my respect for the family and how much I loved David. I had to go. I had to be there. And I was at the funeral. So I had to go. And Craig Peters came with me, one of our other editors, too, just in case there was any issue. I knew Craig was there. So I'm looking a quarter of a mile down the dressing room corridor, and here comes Fritz, Chris, Kevin, and Kerry walking toward me. And everyone knew what was allegedly supposed to happen. And I thought he was just going to come over, yell at me, and tell me to get the F out of there. He got close to me. He takes his hand, and big hand, as you know, and he goes like this on my shoulder. And he says, "I forgive you, son. Have a good time today." And he walked away.
Oh, thank God for that, huh, Bill?
It was the wife.
Really? Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so that was one incident where I thought I was going to be physically harmed. The other one, which was worse than that, was Randy Savage.
Ooh. All in the book, right, Bill? What's the name of the book?
It's Ref.
Show it. Put the hat on.
I didn't know it was broken.
There it is.
And there's no dirt in the book, by the way. I know people love dirt. That's
I don't love dirt. This is what I love. This is what I love. Go ahead. Tell me about Savage.
The Randy Savage story is the scariest story of my professional career. Randy was going to win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship.
Wow, so this is later on. This is later in life, Bill.
Yeah, so he was going to win the WCW World Championship. So we came up with an angle in the magazine when we heard about this, where a fan would yell out Now, keep in mind, Randy Savage was very, very sensitive about his age. Okay. So we came up with an angle where a fan yelled out, in quotes, "old man," and that was the incident that spurred Savage to get into the ring and win the world title, because he wanted to show that fan that he's not an old man. Okay. So I called Randy and I asked him about this, because again, I knew it was a very sensitive issue, his age. And he said, "Oh, go with it, bro. If you think it's okay, go ahead with it." Okay, great. So the story comes out, and I'm in California at the Inoki's Peace Festival, and Eric Bischoff comes in the front door and has some words with me. And I had always gotten along with him. And he said to me, "Oh, by the way, Randy Savage wants to kill you." So I have no clue what this is about. So now I have a plaque. That I'm going to present to Randy Savage, that the fans voted him. It was either comeback of the year or I think it was comeback of the year for him. And I'm in the dress, and for weeks I'm hearing from other wrestlers that Randy Savage wants to kill me, and he's not answering my phone calls. So I'm in the backstage area at Baltimore. All the wrestlers, everybody's coming in, everybody's in a great mood. Randy Savage and Elizabeth coming down the hallway, and he gets near me, and I said, "Hey, I have something for you." "Oh, I have something for you too." And he looks at the plaque, takes it, and he throws it against the concrete wall. Throws it, cracks part of it, picks it up, throws it again. Calls Kevin Sullivan over, looks at me, and says, "You and him," meaning Kevin Sullivan, "over there." And there was this little corridor, which was the size of a closet.
Holy crap,
Now,
Bill. What the heck did you do? Go ahead, bro.
I could see the fire in his eyes, and there was something going on with him. He was either had a lot of drinks, or there were other things going on in terms of what he may have taken or something like that. So now I'm scared, because I had never seen him enraged like this. So now he had just been at my house in Massapequa Park 2 months prior to this, and he even did a video wrestling with little Brandon, where Brandon had a Randy Savage toy. My daughter did, actually, had a Randy Savage figure, and she says, "Boy, I wish this would become real." I stopped the tape. Randy Savage standing.
Bro, can we get back to him killing you?
This is part of it.
All right, so you substitute Randy Savage. He comes in. Your daughter's got the dog. Savage comes in.
My daughter's in love with him. He's wrestling with my son. So this is a setup for part of this.
Aye. Go ahead.
So then we get into this little room, and he says, "Oh, I'm going all the way. You're a big fucking man, aren't you? Huh? You piece of shit. You and your fucking family."
God, Bill, I got to tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt you. But
don't interrupt. You want to know?
I have to interrupt you because I find it fascinating that anybody could have heat with you. Like, I can't imagine anybody having heat with you. But go ahead with the story.
Well, he's going, "You piece of shit. You and your family." He said that fucking story. Now, Kevin Sullivan's standing between us. Probably that if Randy wanted to hit me, that Kevin, being an office person back there, might have to say, "I tried to hit Randy." So I don't know. So he's going over. He says, "That piece of shit story you did, that fucking old man, and they cost me my contract with Slim Jims. They don't want a fucking old man." I said, "Wait a minute. Wait. You shut your mouth, you." I said, "Wait a minute. I called you and I approved. You fucking called me. Fine, you approved me. You know what, man? If I lose my contract with Slim Jim, I'm coming after you."
By the way, I just want you to know that's the worst Savage impression I've ever heard. But go on, Bill.
This is the other Savage now. This is he always just talked like that.
This is the mean Savage. Yeah, the shoot Savage.
So now, Kevin Sullivan is doing all he can not to either laugh or be terrified in between the two of us. So Savage tells me that he's going to freaking kill me. So he told me to stay away from him forever. So now he storms out, and I'm there with the chipped plaque and Kevin Sullivan. Kevin Sullivan says, just let him cool off. He'll get over it. So about an hour and a half later, stupid me goes to the ring to shoot the match of Randy Savage against Ric Flair. And standing right next to me is Nancy Sullivan, who I loved so dearly. I really did. And she, during the match, about 10 minutes into the match, I'm at ringside and she starts playing with my lack of hair. So, and she's going, "Oh, Mr. Bill." So Savage looks at the referee. This is the Philadelphia Arena, packed house. Looks at the referee, looks at Ric Flair, and goes, "Timeout." Walks over to where I am with Nancy. And you remember the wad of spit that Bret Hart spit at Vince McMahon?
Yeah, of course, of course.
I got 3 times that wad in my face.
Holy crap.
Savage stopped the match. So now I'm like, I went to the bathroom, wiped off, said, "Screw this." I went back and I shot the rest of the match. So I stayed away from him for weeks and I started trying to repair this thing because I don't like people. No,
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah, nobody does. I'm the same way, Bill. I hate that.
But this was more so that this guy, I felt really, if he had the opportunity, might physically hurt me. I really did. So I reached out to somebody who was going to call me about this, and that guy was Hulk Hogan, because he knew the volatility of Savage's personality probably better than anyone. And he said, give some time and cool down. So I didn't know about the age thing back then. Like I said, I knew he was sensitive. I had heard that, but I didn't know that this would set him off like this. So about 2 months later, I had planned to go down to Hogan's house to do an at home with Hulk Hogan's story, the whole NWO thing. And he picks me up at the airport and he says, before we go to his house, a friend of his wants to see me. And he drives me to this gymnasium, a little small, dingy gym. There's one guy sitting on a bench back toward me. Looked real skinny, very drawn. And he gets up and it's Randy Savage. Totally the opposite of what he was back in Baltimore. And Hogan looks at Savage, he says, "Talk to him." And Hogan leaves the building, waited outside. Savage hugs me and he says, "Hey man, I'm sorry, it was the demons. I don't know what got into him."
Wow,
And he says,
wow.
if we can ever put this aside, man. I just hugged him. I said, forget. I said, it's forgotten. After he died, and even during the period when he was alive, his brother Lanny Poffo and I were very close. And Lanny didn't know this story. And after he died, I told Lanny the story. And Lanny told me about a story that Randy wanted to do a program with Shawn Michaels in WWF. And he was basically told, you're too old to do that.
Wow, really, huh?
And that's what snapped. Yeah, that's
wow.
So the magazine coming out at that point, the WWF, not long before that, him having an age-related issue with that, he literally just had me in his mind that I was responsible for this whole thing, and that even though I said that I called him, that didn't matter at all. So yeah, that was the most terrifying incident I've ever had.
Bill, I want you to know you're succeeding in hijacking my show with your great stories, but I want you to know it's only because I'm letting you. That's the only reason.
Thank you.
Okay, bro, this could go on all day between you and me, but I know I know. Go ahead, Bill.
Say one thing here, and this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I'm on a different webcam, so if I look like a pinhead.
Oh, Madonna. I mean, the guy is 70 years old. He's worried about bro, you're 70 years old. You're worried about your movie star looks, for crying out loud?
Not at all. No. Okay, go ahead.
Listen, can we get Bill? I could do this all day with you, but I got a couple more.
Cut in here. Something you don't know about.
Go ahead.
You don't know about this.
This better be good, bro, because we got good material. If this is
I'm now doing a one-man show based on the book. That wait. The reason I'm doing this, the Randy Savage story has been requested. I've never told it in that long.
Bro, we will get to the part where we put you over. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
I don't need that. Go ahead.
Listen to me. Stop.
Yes, go ahead.
Here we go, bro. Because I got limited time with the great Bill Apter. Stop.
Go ahead.
Okay, here is a man that worked closely and intimately with both Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. Now, unfortunately, I wish I would have had 5 minutes with Vince McMahon Sr. Bill, I just did an interview with Backlund, who I love, and I know you love, and he just whoever I've ever asked about Vince Sr., they just go on and on and on, which is so hard to believe because at the end of the day, the guy was a wrestling promoter, and we usually know how wrestlers feel about wrestling promoters. But this man was the most beloved man on the planet. Give me a comparison and a contrast with your personal experience with Senior and Junior.
I had heat with both of them. So I was one of the few guys, because Vince Sr. Looked at all the magazines, and there were incidents in the magazines that I would get a call from him, who the hell wrote this story? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? So that Vince that you're talking about, the nice grandpa Vince, I did see that at times, but the relationship with him was also a professional relationship where he had to be careful about what we did. So it was not that same relationship of Bob Backlund, who worked for him. I did, and I'll use the word adore him in a lot of ways, but there were a lot of times also that I became the face of the magazine to him, that I was on the bad side. Vince Jr. Was also some good and some bad. When the magazines were banned by the WWF because they had their own magazine and they wanted it exclusively, I became, in Vince Jr.'s eyes, the enemy of the world. But if you're asking me for a comparison between the two of them, they're both businessmen, both promoters, and my relationship with both of them were business related. Neither of them ever treated me personally wrong, but in terms of business, I felt I was treated wrong on both sides a lot of times.
Okay, there's my headline right there. Bill Apter has heat with both the McMahons. Okay, Bill, we got to. I could talk to you. I could do this line of thing all day, but we got to go on to other things.
Go ahead.
I want an answer from you. Don't listen. I know you're politically correct. I get all that. I want an answer from you, and this interview is going to go on until I get an answer.
Okay.
And I don't want, I'm not letting you dance around this, because I had to answer this. And this was very, very, very difficult for me, because I do have a lot of friends in the business. I have worked with a lot of guys, and I didn't want to insult anybody. But I had to answer the question, okay, in my opinion, who did I think was the greatest all around, from A to Z, professional wrestler, not only that I ever worked with, but also like that I ever saw. Somebody put me on the spot, and I knew, I'm going to name one person, and I may insult the other people I don't mention, but I got to tell you, at the end of the day, when I look at everything, honestly, I walk away saying, and I got no problem saying this, Shawn Michaels was the greatest all-around wrestler that I ever worked with. From A to Z. I'm saying worked with now. From A to Z, it was Shawn Michaels. Who is yours? I mean, Bill, give me one person. You know what it takes, or at least what it took, to be, an iconic professional wrestler, and there's been hundreds.
I've got an answer for you. And this is not a cop-out, but, it goes by generation. It really does, because the business has changed so much, and the people in the ring have changed so much.
Give me your. I'll let you off the hook that week. Give me your generational bests.
Way back in the 70s, it was Jack Briscoe. I mean, he was a fabulous professional wrestler. He could do everything, but he did not epitomize, the flying style of guys today. He was a professional wrestler. Okay?
Mm-hmm. As was Brother Jerry.
Oh, yes. Yeah. But Jack was elevated by the promotions to the fact that he was the Briscoe.
Right. I got you.
And Jerry was great too.
Yeah.
But I photographed so many matches with Jack Briscoe against equally talented Dory Funk Jr. But Jack Briscoe always stood out as that man back in that generation.
Okay.
Now this is going to turn a lot of people off. And I'm going to, especially people in the business, but you don't want me to hide anything.
No, bro. Listen, a lot of things I say, I bring heat upon myself, but I think honesty is the most important thing.
This is going to get me a lot of heat. When you talk about a guy who, and a lot of wrestlers hated working with this guy because they said he was totally selfish through and through. But for a guy who could wrestle, do the flying stuff that was coming up, and look like a professional wrestler, it was Mil Mascaras. He was able to do everything. When I watched wrestling from the Olympic Auditorium and they brought him out, I was always a fan of the high-flying guys from my days as a kid watching Antonino Rocca.
Mm-hmm.
Mil Mascaras had the body, and I don't care whether they, hey, he wouldn't do this with me, he wouldn't do that with me. He had the body, he had the movement. Hey, that guy only does 2 or 3 things. I've seen him do a lot more than that. But he epitomized what wrestling was starting to become at that point.
Okay. I'm with you.
Okay. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to hate this. They're going to hate this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We move on to the next generation, and all due respect to Shawn Michaels. Of course, he's the best, fantastic. But I'm going to say Chris Benoit.
Interesting. Okay.
One of the best matches I ever saw in my life was at the Brian Hildebrand Memorial in Knoxville, Tennessee, which was Chris Benoit against William Regal. It was a wrestling match. And every time I saw Chris Benoit wrestle, he didn't perform. He wrestled. Yeah.
Bro, you want to hear an experience I had? And I don't even know if I've ever mentioned this before. One of the most unforgettable matches, you're going to get a kick out of this, I ever saw, bro, was Benoit was trying out for the WWE. So I'm sure this is on tape somewhere, but it was not televised. He had a dark match with Owen. Okay?
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yeah, I sat there. My mouth hit the floor. As soon as the match was over, keep in mind, at that point, I didn't know Chris Benoit from a hole in the wall. I ran over to Pat Patterson. I wasn't involved in creative at that point. I said, Pat, when are you signing this guy? Pat turned around to me and said, signing him? Are you out of your mind? He can't cut a promo. So, literally, they didn't sign him at that point because they felt he couldn't cut. But Bill, I'll never forget that match between Owen and Benoit. But I don't want to interrupt you. Go on. Well, what's next?
So we're up to the current crop of guys, and again, I'm going to get a lot of heat for this from a lot of people. But
I agree 1,000%.
John Cena as an in-ring wrestler. I'm not talking as the performer part of him. I split it up between, performance and what you do in the ring as a wrestler, because once all that window dressing is gone, you're wrestling.
Right.
Okay? John Cena. Absolutely.
Bill, most underrated wrestler of all time.
Wow. That's a great question.
And you could feel free to include me in that category.
I was going to come up with you, but I don't want to make this thing too self-serving on either end here.
That's fair. Okay, most underrated. Who didn't get their just desserts, in your opinion?
Well, I actually, God, that's the toughest question, and it's not my.
I'm a great interview, Bill. What do you expect? Come on.
Yeah, no, and it's not my 70-year-old mind. That's not.
Somebody's got to come to mind, Bill.
Well, actually, underrated. I talked about his match against Benoit is William Regal. William Regal could have been, I think, a megastar.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't have the shtick to do this, but they did try and, give him some more personality and all that. But, I think in terms of underrated guys, if I was making up an all-time top 10 of pro wrestling wrestlers, he'd have to be among those guys.
All right. Bill, let me ask you this, and I'm sure it's in Is Wrestling Fixed? I didn't know it was broken. I'm gonna put 5 minutes aside at the end of this to put you over like the second coming. Trust me. But now I'm marking out for you and your wisdom here, Bill. What is your greatest all-time story? What is your favorite story to tell of all time?
The Randy Savage story.
That one, huh? Hey,
Yeah.
Bill, here's another thing. I want you to throw this out there. Listen, I'm going to allow you now the opportunity to put yourself over. Because, Bill, last time we were together, you told me some people outside of wrestling that you've interviewed in your career.
Oh,
And I walked away and I was like, oh, my God, this old hack really is somebody. Bill, tell us who you've interviewed outside of wrestling.
Well, a lot of this stuff is on YouTube. Liberace, Robert Goulet. And
Did Liberace make a move on you?
No, he didn't. The best part about the no, not at all. It was at the old Long Island Westbury Music Fair.
Of course.
It's on YouTube. It's an audio, but it's on YouTube. But the best part about him, my dad was with me, and my dad always wanted to meet Liberace. And he opened the dressing room door.
And he hit on your dad?
No, neither of us.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Start going into Jerry Lewis.
Go ahead.
And he looked at my dad and I said, hi, Nat. Hi, Bill. And he invited us in. And I did a 25-minute interview with him. And then he signed my dad's record album. And I asked him at the last part of the interview.
Was he wearing any pants at the time?
He was, actually.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
But I wasn't.
Okay.
Just in case.
Bill, that's that, bro. Wait a minute, Bill. I got that vision in my head now. Let me get it out. Okay. All right, go ahead, Bill.
The last question I asked him, because I asked him about his name, what his real name is, and all this kind of stuff. But the last question I asked him, I said, does Liberace wear sequined underwear? And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, well, no, because I could never sit on them. So Liberace, all the great singers, Bill Cosby,
Robert Goulet, you said Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby was I did my imitation of Robert Culp for Bill Cosby, and we told a lot of stories in that one. James Earl Jones when he was on Broadway in The Great White Hope.
Yeah.
Oh God, so many of them, and I still have all the audio cassettes.
Bro, what about my favorite that you blew me away? That I even thought you were making it up.
Who?
In the baseball world.
Oh, I was going to say Miley Cyrus, but Mickey Mantle.
Oh, bro, Mickey Mantle, bro. What was that like?
That was incredible because he when I got down there and I'm starting to talk to him, all he's doing is looking at my sport jacket. And after the interview, I said, "Do you like my sport jacket?" He said, "It's buttoned wrong." That's what.
Wow, huh, bro? Look at that.
But no, that interview also is on YouTube. If people go to YouTube, did you ever watch it?
No, I'm going to watch it, Bill. I have not. I'm going to watch right after this.
It's an audio interview, but my dad was the ultimate Yankee fan, and I got tickets for an Old Timers Day one time, press tickets, and I asked him, "Could I bring my father to hold the cassette recorder?" And they let me do it. My dad was telling Casey Stengel how to play these guys.
Wow.
Bobby Mercer also was a great interview. And Boston Red Sox had Carl Yastrzemski that day in the outfield while he was throwing and warming up. He let me interview him, and I could not pronounce his name. I'm speaking with Boston great Carl Yastrzemski.
Now is that on? Now that I want to see. That I want to see on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, you can hear it eventually if I put
Bill,
it.
what was your everybody? Bill, how many people you think you've interviewed? Literally, forget about it, right?
5,000 people.
Okay, your one favorite interview of all time, if you had to pick one.
Oh, okay, that's it would have been Anthony Newley, who was one of my 4 or 5 showbiz heroes. I got to meet James Cagney, but I didn't get to interview him. He was another one of my heroes. Andy Williams was one of my singing heroes, but Anthony Newley, who people
what's bro? I know who Anthony Newley is, and
people don't. So
what song is he married to? What's the famous that Anthony Newley's famous for?
Well, there were 2 or 3 of them. He wrote the Candyman.
Yep.
What Kind of Fool Am I?
That's it.
There was Who Can I Turn To? Was he? And he
That's
wrote,
it.
Yeah,
Can you give me your best Anthony Newley "Who Can I Turn To" impression?
You want Who Can I Turn To, or What Kind of Fool Am I?
What kind of fool am I? Go ahead.
Sure. What kind of fool am I who never fell in love? It seems that I'm the only one that I have been thinking of. The end part, the finish, though, he'd always go, why can't I cast away this mask of play and live my life? He had a very Cockney accent.
Bill, I got to ask you this. Like, this is weird. Like, Bill, I'm going to ask you this question. Like, I'm going to tell you this, but I'll tell you why. Bill, you know who, like, one of maybe my greatest entertainer of all time was?
Sammy Davis?
No, close, but I think you're going to appreciate this. But I think if you know Vince Russo, I don't think it's a far stretch. Bro, I was the biggest mark in the world for Tiny Tim.
Oh, I knew him really well. Can I tell you the Tiny Tim story?
Wait, hold up. I want to stay on track first. And of
Not in
course,
the book.
tell me. Now, bro, of course, with me, you know, seeing him for the first time on Laugh-In when I was about 6 years old, this guy was the greatest gimmick character of all time. Of all time. So I immediately was drawn to him. So that explains it. So my question is, bro, why would a guy like Anthony Newley be a showbiz hero to you?
Because I wanted to be in theater. I was a theater guy, and I used to go to Broadway shows every week for $2.90 and buy standing room. And there was something about his stage presence and his Cockney accent that just grabbed me. You know, an entertainer gets you or he doesn't get you. He got me.
Yeah. Bro, you know who I'm a mark for like that?
Talk about Tiny Tim.
Wait, I'm going to ask you, can I do the interview?
Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Bro, you know who I'm a huge mark for? And I'm going to throw it out there because who knows, bro? Maybe you interviewed her. You know who is my favorite female entertainer of all time to this day? I don't care if people think I'm a foofy man, I'm irrelevant, I'm this, I'm that. I could care less. In a class of her own, I don't think any female entertainer has ever been in her league. That includes Madonna and Lady Gaga. Blah, 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 blah. Greatest female entertainer of all time. Who do you think? And I've seen her in concert probably 10 times.
We talking about Barbara Streisand?
No, better than Barbara.
Carol Burnett.
Liza.
Oh, she's an incredible. And I sat with Andy Kaufman had invited my wife and I to Catch a Rising Star to their anniversary, and he sat us at a table with Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro.
Did she talk about me?
She actually did. She wanted to know who this kid was.
Unbelievable. You sat at a table with Liza Minnelli and Bobby De Niro.
Until their friends came, and then we...
All right, look, bro, mark me out with Tiny Tim. Take your time with this, please.
I belong to a theater group in Queens called Lyric Theater. It was a children's theater thing. And there was a girl who was one of our performers by the name of Anisha Walsh, who wound up being a cult horror movie star. Anyway, her nickname was Pixie. And one time she told me she wants me to meet her friend Tiny. I said, oh, that's great. She said he hangs out at the Village Gate a lot. And so we got on the subway.
And you have no idea. No idea. You think it's Tiny Lister.
No, I didn't think it was any Tiny anyway. Tiny. I figured he was going to fool me, and he was a tall guy. Tiny Lister back there. So we get on the E train from wherever we were in Queens, and we're riding the E train, and all of a sudden, we were not supposed to see this guy until the Village Gate, and all of a sudden, this guy comes through the opening door of the subway, not the doors opening, between cars, and he's got a ukulele, and he's handing out Jehovah's Witness pamphlet. And he looks and he goes, oh, it's Miss Pixie and my friend. And I said, who's that? She says, that's Tiny. And Tiny was very big. He said, oh, Mr. Bill, hello. And it wasn't a gimmick.
Hey, that's not a bad impression, Bill.
It wasn't a gimmick either. Then he became very, his voice became a little subdued. And we went to the Village Gate with him, and we sat and watched comedians and singers. He wasn't performing there. And he turned out to be a real lovely man. And years later, when he made it, I contacted him when I was doing a radio show in New York. and I met him, and we did a cassette interview. I have it somewhere. I don't know.
Oh,
And he
boy.
always asked me, and you know what? Very sad. Showbiz tried to ruin him, like boxing tried to ruin Mike Tyson. He got too big too quickly, and he couldn't handle it.
Yeah, he was a big, big drinker too, huh?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Wow, so you got to meet him before he was tiny.
I got to meet him before he got married on the. Well, he was still tiny, but nobody knew who he was.
Yeah, wow,
But
Bill, this is tremendous.
He did tiptoe through the tulips in the subway car there, and I wish.
Listen, I want you to know, the great Vince Russo sitting here. I want you to know, I have no problem telling you, I totally mark out for you.
Well, thank you. Likewise, I do too.
Oh, stop, Bill. Listen. I'm definitely bringing you on again. Do we agree to that?
I do, but you know what people don't know?
We didn't even talk about freaking Andy Kaufman, for crying out loud. That's an hour show.
Kaufman. I'm a New Yorker.
Kaufman. That's an hour show, bro. We didn't even talk about Andy Kaufman.
All right. But you know what we didn't talk about too for the next time is how I first met you at a convention. But when you were the editor at WWF magazine, when I used to come through there, and you had to walk on eggshells because the guy that was banned was there. But we should do that another time.
All right, listen, I'm going to wrap this up because I'm definitely bringing you on again. But I'm going to ask you one question. You just strolled me down memory lane.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill. Listen, and don't give me like please don't give me the mamby-pamby answer.
Okay, give me what's the question?
You just strolled me down memory lane.
Okay.
Why does wrestling stink today? What happened to our beloved professional wrestling, Bill? Bill, listen, let me say this, and this is the God honest truth. Bill, I'm going to sum it up real quickly, but I'm going to tell you this. Bill, the first time, here's how I got introduced to wrestling. I was probably about somewhere between 10 to 12. I was in my house on Long Island. There was nothing on TV. I was forced to go to the UHF channels. I go to UHF channel, and there before my eyes, Handsome Jimmy, Luscious Johnny, and Captain Lou. I was hooked for life. I was hooked generation after generation after generation from back then, from Bruno to Backlund to Hogan to WrestleMania to the Attitude Era, the whole gamut. I was hooked. If I turned on that same television set today and saw professional wrestling, I would not be a fan.
Now, wait. How old were you at that time?
10.
Okay, so.
No, Bill, that's baloney. Bill,
I didn't say anything yet.
Okay, no, because Bill, listen, I think that all the time. I think that, well, Vince, you were 10 years old back then. You were a kid. But Bill, I went to WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5 in Atlantic City, which basically tells you, like, well into my 20s, I was still a wrestling fan, and I still loved wrestling.
Wait. Keep this mentality now, okay? And this is coming from me because I know a lot of 10-year-olds. Those 10-year-olds today that are watching whatever they're watching on TV today, that's wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever it is, they're going to continue. They're being trained that this is what it is today. And what they're seeing at 10 years old is good and fun for them, like when you were 10 years old. It's a different business. It's a different product. But for that 10-year-old, they haven't seen what you saw.
I know. I have to tell myself that all the time.
It's a different education.
Bill, what happened to our beloved wrestling business? Come on.
It became a different business. It's amazing because although it's a different business now, it's the big rock concert. It's entertainment. It's about how much glitz, about how many asses we can put in the seats. It's a different thing. There's pro wrestling when it's in the ring. The window dress. I always tell people this. What's in the ring is mainly the same thing, but all the window dressing has totally changed. They've made the window dressing out front where the wrestling used to be out front. That's the difference.
What happened to Waldo Von Erich?
I think.
Where are the Waldo Von Erichs?
Oh yeah. Now you see, there's a great question, because it was back in the day of a Waldo Von Erich that the fans were afraid of the bad guy.
Yeah, Bill, I bring up that name because legitimately, as a kid, I was scared to death of that man.
Okay, so and I was scared of a lot of the bad guys too. But Wild Bull Curry, when I was watching TV when I was a kid, terrifying. Bulldog Brower, terrifying. Crazy Luke Graham, terrifying. Now today, the younger kids are scared somewhat of the bad guys, but the parent will now tell them, because they all know what the business is.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. It's just an act.
Yeah.
I was afraid these guys were going to come over and jump through my TV and kill me.
Yeah, I was too, bro. All right, listen, Bill. Let's do the stand up. Let's do the book. Let's do the great organization you work for. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
First of all, I'm going to say this. It's not stand up. My one-man show called...
Listen, hold on. Before you get into the one-man show, I'm going to let you do it as Jerry Lewis. Go ahead.
The whole thing?
The whole thing. Go ahead. This is on video. Go ahead.
So the first, it's not really, but it could. And then Ma, they got me. I'm on with... Are we still on?
Bill, can I ask you something?
No.
Why am I sitting here laughing at you?
I don't know.
How does that even happen, bro?
You know what I found out, Vince Russo, and I'm going to make this admission to you on your show that I've never admitted to anyone before.
You're a woman living in a man's body like Caitlyn Jenner.
Well, stop it.
Go ahead.
But besides, no, actually, hold on a minute.
Here, see, why do I got to open my mouth? I just had him in the go home, and I had to open my mouth. Go ahead, Bill.
The lovely Lexi Rose has joined me.
And now you got props. You got a dog prop. Can you finish what you were going to say?
Yes.
Please?
Yeah. So the one man show, it's not a comedy show per se. It's his Wrestling Fix, an afternoon or an evening with Bill Apter, and it's combined of music, contests.
Now, should people bring a pillow to this because they may fall asleep?
Not at all.
All right, go ahead, Bill.
When I do this show, it's about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, and people are waiting. They want more. There are contests in here. For example, I have a Taz singlet that he gave me years ago, and I have a contest where two people in the audience, non-related to wrestling, have to have a contest to see how long it takes someone in non-wrestling, a normal person, to put on a Taz singlet. It's hysterical, and they win a prize there. Whoever can do it's, I think 3 minutes was the longest it took someone.
Now, Bill, is this a one and done? This is something like you're telling me this, and this is something that should be on the road from city to city.
Yeah, it's starting. We've been in. I've done it at Cauliflower Alley Club. They said it was the most entertaining and most attended seminar ever in all the years. I was never there before. This was my first time. But wait. I've done it in Philly, and I've got a bunch of them coming up. No, it's not a one and done. So it opens up with this character who somebody introduces this character, and you can find him on Facebook. His name is Insane Bill with one L Mascolo. And the Insane Clown Posse made me a Juggalo years ago, and I have a Juggalo shirt, and I have a Mil Mascaras mask, and I rap Barry Manilow songs. Yeah. So there's a character that comes out before me. His name is Insane Bill Mascolo. And he comes out rapping, yo, I can't smile without you. Wait a minute, got to do this right. Yo, I can't smile without you. I can't laugh and I can't sing. So he comes out and then he leaves. And then Bill Apter comes out.
Does everybody listen, if you're not watching this show, I know you're listening to it on Podcast One. If you're not watching this on the Realm Network, you are absolutely out of your mind. Does everybody understand this is a 70-year-old man?
This is no, forget the age.
This is
Wait, I want to tell you about the admission that I never mentioned.
Yeah, exactly, because you're all over the place because of that age.
So the show,
what's the admission?
The show includes that, the Q&A, videos. I have a finger book with hundreds of guys giving me the middle finger that I took pictures of, and there's a 40-second video of the finger book and office wrestling. When the guys used to come up to the office, they used to have to wrestle me to get on the cover, and those things will never be released anywhere. But I have a 6-minute compilation that I'm going to you eventually to look at. So here's the admission. The admission is, and I didn't realize this until about 6 weeks ago. My whole goal growing up, and I was a wrestling fan, was to be an entertainer. I wanted to be Sammy Davis. I wanted to be Andy Williams. I wanted to have my own variety show.
No kidding, bro. Go ahead.
Right. So I never realized that all this stuff I do, when all these promoters and Gordon Soley started to put me on TV, is that, you know what? The show, here I am being Bill Apter, the Jimmy Olsen Cub reporter. This has become, the promoters made me a character on TV. This is the reporter from New York. So I wasn't playing silly Bill Jerry Lewis type of thing. I was playing the reporter. And of course, I was doing that for the magazines, of course, and that was a dream job, but I was also getting my performing out. So about 10 or 11 years ago, I started going around doing some Q&As and a lot of conventions and stuff. And people asked me to do my wrestling imitations and stuff. And I thought when the book came out, why not, instead of doing a one-man thing, why don't I get up there and sing, tell jokes, tell stories about what I do, have contests, and make this my own variety?
Well, probably because people would ask for their money back, but go ahead.
Only you did. You have to throw you out.
Go ahead, Bill.
The admission is that basically I've always been an entertainer, and I figured out that pro wrestling became that stage, that platform for me to do this at.
There you go.
My best friend and I entertain at senior homes, and there's no wrestling stuff involved in that.
Well, thank God those people are already asleep.
Most of them are. You're right.
Yeah.
We sing for the House of the Deaf. But anyway, thank you for that. And now getting to the book, when the last magazine that I worked for in England, Total Wrestling Magazine, collapsed, Michael Holmes from ECW Press called me and asked me if I write a book. I said, I'm not a writer. I'm a column guy. I don't write lots of feature stories. So he said, well, people would love to read this. And my wife was saying, maybe you should do this. And fans were reaching out to me about it. So that was about 2002 or 2004. I started writing it in 2013. I just didn't want to do it. I don't know why. I couldn't do it. So then I was speaking with Greg Oliver, who was going to become the editor of this, because he's done 100 wrestling books for ECW Press and hockey books. And I knew that I could write columns and stuff, but a book was a totally different ballgame. So I made an outline of what was going to be in the book, and he edited it, and it came out as they wanted a title, and they were, well, Bill Apter's this, but I said, no. I said, back in the late 80s, hay fever. Back in the late 80s, a fan came over to me. He was watching a match between Abdullah the Butcher and Mr. Wrestling number 2. And he came over to me. I was shooting pictures. He said, Mister, is that wrestling fixed? And I said to him, and I don't know why this came out, I said, I didn't know it was broken.
There you go.
And his dad said to him, you can't fix something that ain't been broken, son. So when they asked me about a title, I said this. So now during the book signings and the one-man show, I walk into the room and I yell out, "Is wrestling fixed?" And 100 people yell out, "I didn't know it was broken." So I've also extended this. I've made T-shirts. "Is wrestling fixed? I didn't know it was broken." Bill Apter. It's on Pro Wrestling Tees. I'm doing the one-man show. I have baseball caps. So rather than making this a one-shot book, because I don't want to do another book, I've made it. Hold it. You ready? The brand.
You're stealing my gimmick now. You're stealing my gimmick.
I've made it a brand. I've made Is Wrestling Fixed a brand.
Well, how do like, okay, you mentioned Pro Wrestling Tees for the T-shirt. Do we get the hat there too? Where do we get the hat? Where do we get the book? Where do we go for this?
Amazon.com for the book. That's the best place to go for it. And if you go to onewrestling.com, if you want the book autographed, and I'm not in that area, if you go to onewrestling.com, that's the number one, not the word, and you put in the search engine Bill Apter autograph, there's a bunch of packages. Somebody taught me something about getting a book autographed that I never thought of. There was a guy who used to be the producer of the Mike Douglas show, and he got in touch with me, and he said, rather than you sending out books and becoming a mailroom, which I don't want to do, he says, buy labels from like little labels that you use on your computer, and sign the label and send it to the fan to personalize it, because then they can just put it right on the page here. And that way they don't have to send you your book, and you're not spending money sending out books.
Yeah, because I hate that too. It's a pain in the neck.
So that's it. If you search there's a bunch of packages.
Bill, don't tell me that, bro. Do you not have a website in 2016?
Well, I'm on onewrestling.com. That's my
Well,
website.
how come you don't have you just said I'm a brand. Why isn't there a website for you in the book?
Because that's part of my brand, is being the head of onewrestling.com. I'm associated with that like I was with the wrestling magazines. But I'm on Twitter.
Yeah, what's your Twitter? Tell everybody your Twitter handle.
Apter One Wrestling. That's the number 1. And there's no N in my last name. Dusty Rhodes once called me Willie Apner. And now everybody, Baron Von Raschke's known me for 40 years. He calls me Apter a couple of weeks ago. It's Apter, APTER 1, the number 1 wrestling. And you can hit me up on Facebook. Easy way to get to me is email bapter@onewrestling.com. And I answer all my email.
Before we end the interview, I want you, because I'm going to bring you back on, but I want you to do something totally out of character.
Okay.
I want you to bury somebody. Just bury. 'Cause I never heard Bill Apter bury somebody.
Well, I'm ready. And it doesn't matter who it is, and you're okay with this.
Except me.
Well, I was going to bury you.
Okay, no, I got somebody you could bury.
No, I was going to bury you.
No, you can't bury me, bro.
I have to.
What about what?
You told me I could bury anyone I want.
Can we bury Andre Corbeil? Could we bury him together, me and you?
No, we can't. We definitely can't. Andre's a great guy. He used to do segments for me at OneWrestling.com.
Man, you are going senile, aren't you?
What?
You just said Andre's a great guy.
He is a great guy. Personally, he's very, very, very nice.
Bill, let me ask you one last question. Since you won't bury anybody, I'll go the second route.
You won't let me bury you?
Did you ever really, Bill? Because I can't picture this. Did you ever really get mad at somebody, like in the business? Were you ever really mad at something? Did somebody do something to make you really mad?
Yes, Eric Bischoff.
What did he do?
It's in the book. That was the other part of that story about the Randy Savage thing.
I tease that then. Don't tell that story.
Okay, but I got very angry at him. It's very rare that I'll say to someone, "Don't you ever talk to me like that." But yeah. That's all behind us now. Get along with him great.
Well, I'm glad you get along with him great, because him and I are not the bestest of friends.
But I want to bury you. Come on.
Go ahead, bury me. Go ahead. Your dog. Go ahead.
Well, I'm Mr. Positive there. I find that sometimes you grab a hold of things and you just look for the negative quality in it. You're dying for that negative. Like, Bill, you got to bury somebody. What the hell? Why do I have to bury somebody?
Because it's so out of character. No, here's why. You're talking to me about entertainment, right? You burying somebody is so out of your character that it would be entertaining. You're all about entertainment.
I'm burying you because you generally go for the negative where I go for the positive. So I generally, and I came on here knowing that this was going to be possibility of me burying everybody I've ever known. And that is part of the burial here, is that the negativity of Vince Russo sometimes makes Vince Russo like, do you talk to that guy? I love you. You know that, period, in a guy way, of course.
Yeah, right.
I love you. And you know that. You're one of my favorite people in the whole world. And I would get PO'd if you didn't kiss me on the forehead.
That's right. That's right.
I don't like to be called an old man because I'm not an old man.
Let me ask you a question. Who makes a bigger fuss when they see you than me?
Nobody.
Nobody, bro.
Ed Ferrara got close.
You want to bury Ed? We could bury Ed.
No. Ed got close. He was almost taking the zipper down, but he didn't go that far.
Oh my God! You want to bury Ed? We could bury Ed.
No, I can't. I love him.
I'm only kidding. Bill Apter, for the record, has never buried anybody.
I just buried you.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to get him to bury somebody for entertainment purposes because I wanted to hear it, because I wouldn't have believed it.
Can I bury my wife for on Monday night saying, "Why haven't you taken the garbage out yet?"
I bury my wife all the time on my show. All the time, Bill.
No, it's just about the garbage, because Monday night is Monday Night Raw. And I sit there and I watch. And the garbage will not go out unless it's an hour before or an hour after.
Now, after sitting there and watching Monday Night Raw, when the show is over, have you ever contemplated suicide?
No.
Okay, because I have. Bill, you know I love you, bro. But Bill, can I tell you something? This interview may have been the most fun I ever had interviewing anybody.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it too.
Because the stories, your knowledge, the goofy humor. I love the Jerry Lewis. I love everything about you.
You got Dean Martin in the back. I forgot to say hi to Dean.
Bill, promise me we'll do this again.
I would love to, but next time we do this, if possible, we need to try and do it in the evening.
When you're sauced up?
No, when the vampires come in.
All right, Bill, listen, let me say one more time, bro.
I don't drink. Vince, I don't drink alcohol.
I don't either. Me neither, bro. I don't drink at all. Nothing.
The only time I drank was on my first honeymoon, and I called my wife by my first girlfriend's name. I called her Joyce, and she said, "What did you call me?" I said, "No, it's Joyce that we're together. It's so joyful."
And Bill, not only that, we may have this in common. But if not, I'm going to give you the opportunity to come clean right here on the show. Not only do I not drink, I've been married to my wife for 33 years, and am proud to say I've been faithful for 33 years.
Oh, I have too. To your wife? I've been faithful to your wife also.
You see how you are. All right, listen, Bill, one more time.
I have been, of course.
Is wrestling fixed? I didn't know it was broken. We can go to Amazon.com. Give them the Twitter address one more time.
It's at Apter One Wrestling.
And Pro Wrestling Tees for the T-shirts.
Right, and you can follow me in news on OneWrestling.com or One Wrestling Video. And I want you to go and watch the Liberace and the Mickey Mantle interviews.
I definitely am. And you got to dig up that Tiny Tim. And bro, if you could dig that up for me, I'll kiss you on the mouth.
Now I'm definitely not going to find it.
I'm going to wrap it up. While I'm wrapping it up, you rap in the background, okay?
Yo, like I can't smile without you.
All right, everybody, there you go. The great Willie A., the great Bill Apter.
Night. No, that's it. I'm done rapping.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then put it on a pole again. Put it on a pole again. Put it on the pole again. And our square to quad is gonna get emotional as I wait to overbook the damn